The story begins with two armies at war, slashing their way to victory and dominance over the enemy. All of a sudden, a huge explosion occurred, leading to the destruction of the bridge. The White Knights became nervous since the bridge was the only way back to their base. Later they found out that the person who destroyed the bridge was none other than Reid, the hero of Altyne. Reid heard a familiar voice as he had expected this particular person to show up, Elria the Sage. After showcasing her ability by casting multiple spells, Reid asked her if they could finally settle the score after fighting hundreds of battles with each other. As Elria reminded Reid that they had fought 629 times, Reid appreciated that he was always reminded every time they fought. Even though Reid kept forgetting how many times they had fought, he knew he couldn't afford to show his pathetic side to others on the battlefield since he is called a hero. Elria felt the same way since she had also been called a sage. In the Altyne Kingdom, there was a man referred to as a hero who had thrown himself into numerous battlefields without losing, and had never once fallen to his knees until the very end of his life. The country Vigalta fought the Altyne Empire and was led by a lady referred to as a sage. Using the concept of magic, she overturned the unfavorable tides of war and increased the power of the entire country by spreading magic technology. The hero and sage had always met on the battlefield. They never slept, never rested, and always fought as if they were enjoying the battle. The only person the hero, Reid could go all out against was none other than Elria Caldwin, the sage. However, their unique relationship would soon end. Eventually, a conclusion will be reached between the two. A white-haired man from the Altyne Empire named Lord Frieden received a report that Elria the Sage had been defeated. When Lord Frieden asked Lyot the messenger if the information was true, Lyot responded that the information was extremely credible since it came from a spy who had infiltrated Vigalta. Lord Frieden sat down, relieved, thinking that he would die first before Elria. When Lord Frieden was informed of a royal decree sent by the higher-ups, he had assumed that he would be regarded as useless after the passing of the sage. However, after hearing the decree in full detail, the white-haired man became enraged at the Altyne higher-ups for ordering such an unnecessary invasion. Lyot understood that what lay before them was the greatest opportunity they ever had. However, the people who were present on the battlefield knew that both Reid and Elria Caldwin did not want to waste the lives of the soldiers and decided to fight in a one-on-one battle. Frustrated, Lyot wished not to use the death of the great sage for war, but rather mourn for her death. The person known as the hero, Reid appreciated Lyot's words and told him that he would be sure to convey his words properly to her. When Reid removed his armor and grabbed his sword, Lyot was curious about what he was going to do. Reid responded that he can't be dressed up for war to meet a friend. At the border of Altyne and Vigalta, Reid dashed towards the Vigalta country. Reid remained unfazed after multiple arrows were launched at him. After the soldiers of Vigalta finally recognized that it was Reid, it was already too late as Reid was now right in front of their mages. The mages tried to stop Reid, but he was too fast and strong for them. When Reid was about to land a punch on one of the mages, he suddenly stopped. Reid was then attacked from the back by Tiana, Elria's disciple. With tears in her eyes, Tiana asked Reid if he had come to invade their country. With the full force attack of the mages of Vigalta, Reid did not defend himself and sustained heavy injuries. After removing the shards that were stuck on his body, Reid told Tiana that he only came to say goodbye to Elria. Reid eventually landed at the Vigalta royal capital and punched his way in. As the soldiers mourned for the death of their sage, they asked Reid what he was planning to do with Elria. Reid wished to die on his terms after he finished talking to Elria and asked the soldiers not to get in his way. In front of Elria's body, Reid knelt and complimented how strong the people she had raised. Reid was still amazed by her, even though she had passed. Many people still looked up to her. Even though they couldn't decide who was stronger between the two of them, Reid enjoyed fighting Elria for over 50 years. Thinking that if they were in a different position, Reid knew that they could have been friends. Reid then lay beside Elria as he slowly passed away. As everything turned to darkness, Reid was confused when he woke up as a baby and curious about the lady in front of him. After having his special milk prepared for him, he cried out as he had no idea where he was. 18 years had passed and Reid was now a teenager. Working as a lumberjack, Reid was asked to cut down large trees. After felling the tree with one swing, his colleagues were very impressed and glad he was around to help them. Carrying the huge tree on his shoulder, Reid asked his colleague where he should take it. They were suddenly surprised after seeing a new species of squirrel from the tree that Reid had taken down. Everyone was so excited that the reincarnated Reid thought the place was genuinely peaceful. Reid was certain that he would spend his days like that in his current life. The news of a new species of squirrel was published in the papers, and Reid's photo was included. A woman immediately stood up as she became excited after finally finding Reid. At Reid's home, his mother suddenly rushed towards him asking what he had done. Reid became confused as he didn't remember doing anything in particular. His mother then informed him that a noble from the royal capital was looking for him, and that he was asked to visit the village chief's house. After hearing that a noble was looking for him, Reid immediately thought of mages that fought against magical beasts with magic. However, he was still curious, since he was sure he had nothing that could be of concern to them. Reid's mother had the same thoughts, but she was still nervous since they specifically called Reid's name. She became even more nervous after noticing that Reid was rather calm after learning that a person with nobility was looking for him. Reid couldn't explain to his mother that he was no longer surprised after waking up and finding out that 1,000 years had passed. Reid learned in school that his old hometown, the Empire, had long been destroyed and absorbed into the enemy country, Vegalta. The country had now become a magic kingdom, and magic had become something that anyone could use. As Reid left to head to the village chief's house, his mother asked him to pretend that she had no knowledge of his actions in case he would cause a problem. After hearing Reid's nonchalant response, his mother sobbed as she suggested that they should atone for their sins together. After leaving his house, Reid was asked by the people in the town what he had done. He was a little embarrassed since rumors had already spread throughout the village. Everyone then gathered at the magic vehicle, as such machinery was privately owned, and only a high-ranking noble could obtain it. The village chief dashed towards Reid after seeing him and immediately asked what he had done. When Reid asked if a big-shot noble was in the village chief revealed that a distant descendant of the royal family in the Vegalta Magic Kingdom was looking for him. When Reid asked the intention of the noble that they personally look for him, the village chief asked the same thing and was only told that Reid would know once they met. When Reid finally went inside the room, he froze as he saw Elria once again. When Elria called Reid's attention, she was surprised when Reid suddenly apologized. Confused as to why Reid was using honorifics, Reid explained that since he was in the presence of a noble from House Caldwin, he had to watch his tone. When Reid asked if they had met before, Elria became disappointed. However, when Reid asked if she was looking for a guy who was a hero, Elria's eyes widened with excitement, but then realized that the Reid she knew did not talk like that. Reid then eventually revealed that he was indeed that hero she was looking for. He then asked if she was the same Elria from his past, and Elria responded that she was, and tried proving it by informing Reid what she likes to drink and do. Reid couldn't confirm if the information she mentioned was true since the only thing he knew about Elria was just her name. Elria suggested that they could just fight each other to find out, a suggestion that Reid could agree to. However, there weren't many places around that Elria could use her magic. Elria then told Reid that if he could dispel her magic in 10 seconds, then she would know it was the real Reid. The two then transferred to an open field, which made Elria curious where they were. Reid revealed to her that they were in his workplace. Curious, Elria asked what work he was doing in the village. When Elria learned that Reid was mostly doing regular hard labor, she asked for the reason. After informing Elria that he couldn't use magic, Reid still asked her not to hold back since he still had strength from his previous life. After Elria agreed to the terms, she then cast a huge fireball and launched it at Reid. Clenching his fist, Reid positioned himself and then punched the huge fireball and totally destroyed it. As the presence of the strong wind became a witness to the little battle, Reid asked Elria how many times they had fought. After informing Reid the exact number, the two then had a familiar conversation which they usually had in their past life. While Elria was glad that Reid and her finally met, Reid, on the other hand, never thought that they would meet again. Elria then shared that since she was reincarnated, she had assumed that Reid would also be reincarnated. Reid then became curious how she found him. After Elria shared that she found him in the news article, Reid was more surprised that Elria would even check the articles of the countryside. When Reid asked Elria what reincarnation really was, Elria explained that it was an event where one inherits the memories and abilities of their previous life, precisely called reincarnation magic. When Reid assumed that Elria used the reincarnation magic, Elria explained that she did not. Reincarnation magic was just a name that Elria gave on a provisional basis. The magic exists in theory, but Elria has no knowledge in making it. Elria then became annoyed when Reid teased her for not knowing the procedure. Elria then shared that if what had really happened to them was the reincarnation magic, she would also look the same as what she was before. Elria was then annoyed that Reid did not notice that she was now human instead of an elf. Theorizing that Reid's inability to use magic was also caused by the reincarnation magic, Elria asked what were the results for his magic aptitude test. Reid revealed that he accidentally broke the examination device, which he ended up receiving an earful. When Reid shared his wish to live peacefully in the countryside, Elria was annoyed since she knew that Reid was as strong as her and was used to being known as a hero. Mad at the fact that only mages are allowed to fight, Elria suggested to Reid that he should marry her. Seeing Reid's confused look, Elria then explained her plan of Reid becoming a part of the Caldwell family, which he would then become a mage after taking the Magic Academy's entrance exam. Thinking that the plan was somewhat cheating, Elria explained herself that it was not cheating since Reid had the capabilities to fight her for over 50 years. Elria could not accept that the people around them do not recognize Reid's real power. Reid was glad to hear the offer but was not sure about Elria's proposal. Elria then suggested that they see who was stronger between the two of them. After hearing Elria's words, Reid responded that he would not run or hide, as he would always accept Elria's challenge. When Reid finally met the village chief after speaking with Elria, the visibly worried chief asked if it was bad news. While Reid explained that he was going with Elria to the royal capital, Elria, on the other hand, was extremely embarrassed after suggesting to Reid that they should get married. As soon as Elria stepped out of the room, she was surprised as the people from the village were so eager to meet her. Seeing Elria turning red from embarrassment, Reid reminded everyone of their manners and emphasized that they wouldn't be able to ride the magic vehicle if they were blocking the way. Elria felt a sense of relief after hearing Reid's words and extending her hand. The village chief agreed with Reid and roughly asked everyone to back off. After thanking Reid, the two then went inside the magic vehicle and set out for the royal capital. While on their way, Elria was so embarrassed at what happened that she was no longer listening to Reid. When Reid called out Elria's attention, she was surprised and immediately turned red since Reid's face was so close. Thinking that Elria must have had a shy personality before reincarnating, Reid suddenly wondered if Elria knew the reason why he couldn't use magic. Elria theorized that it was probably because of Reid's unique magic power. Unlike others whose magic energy is like flowing water passing through the magic circuit, Reid's magic power was like a rock that, if forced, the path itself would break down. Elria mentioned that she would have to construct a special theoretical formula to match Reid's powers, if he wishes to use magic. When Elria mentioned that the process might take a long time since in her previous life, it took her 100 years just to form the basis of her magic theory, Reid was very grateful to Elria as she had solved Reid's 18 years of curiosity. When Elria asked if Reid wanted to use magic, he responded that he only wanted to know what it felt like to use magic. Elria reassured Reid that he would be fine since he still couldn't beat her even if he had magic. When Elria thanked Reid for accepting her proposal, she immediately became embarrassed when Reid mentioned that he was surprised by the sudden proposal. But Reid does agree with Elria, since marriage was the only way for a commoner who cannot use magic to become a mage. Reid also found the marriage convenient as he discussed with Elria how the two of them got reincarnated after 1,000 years. Reid had his suspicions that someone might be involved in their reincarnation, and being a commoner he couldn't do anything about it. Reid also does not want Elria to bear all the burden. Reid then realized that Elria's family name was linked to the royal family. Elria explained that she was the daughter of the royal family and that her disciple, Tiana, inherited her family name. It was then known that the Kaldwin family was the lineage of the sage. Reid then asked Elria if she was really fine with him being her fiancé, even though they were enemies in their previous life. Elria had no problem as she did not care that they were once enemies. The two were grateful to one another as they both trusted each other. Reid then shared that he had never once given an engagement speech in his previous life. Reid spent most of his life on the battlefield when he decided to turn down all marriage talks. When Reid asked if his stories were passed down to the future generations, Elria panicked and explained to Reid that his story had been adapted and passed down. Though Elria couldn't bear to tell Reid his adapted story, he reassured him that it was not what he thought. When they finally arrived at Elria's home, Reid couldn't close his mouth after seeing such a huge house. A man then called Elria's name as he landed in front of them. That man was Elria's father, Galleon Cladwin. Enraged that Elria went on another excursion alone, Galleon's anger suddenly changed as he became happy that Elria was honest. Galleon became more proud when Elria mentioned that she had left a note and also told people at the mansion. When Elria mentioned that she had brought her fiancé, Galleon outright rejected her fiancé. When Reid introduced himself, Galleon greeted him energetically and immediately asked him to go home. When Reid responded that he wouldn't be going home, Galleon then asked him to follow him inside the mansion as he then introduced the real head of the family. Galleon then told his wife that Elria had brought her fiancé. Elria's mother, Alicia Kaldwin, who was also the head of the Kaldwin family, asked her husband to step away since he was being too noisy. When Reid introduced himself to Alicia, she responded that she had never heard of his family name before. As Alicia and Reid spoke to each other, she assessed Reid and told Elria that he was much more level-headed than her. Alicia was then disappointed in Elria, that she would compliment Reid even though her own mother had insulted her. When Elria told her mother that she had finally found Reid, Alicia asked Reid to raise his head as he would be their guest. When Alicia and Reid sat down, Alicia asked what was going on and how things came to be. After assessing Alicia, Reid knew that a mediocre excuse would not work on her. Reid then honestly told Alicia about his plans, to which Alicia accurately guessed that it was Elria's idea. Wondering if Alicia doubted his words, Reid told her that she can confirm it with Elria. However, Alicia mentioned that she didn't need to confirm it since he was indeed the real Reid. Alicia explained that Elria was strange at birth as she spoke Reid's name out of nowhere. After hearing Elria's story that even scared her mother before, Reid was surprised after learning that Elria had been looking for him for a long time without any basis that he was also reincarnated. Reid was surprised when Alicia approved of their marriage. When he asked if she would be okay to hand their house in his hands, Alicia responded that she only wanted to fulfill her daughter's wishes. Reid then shared that Elria was his only equal, and that they've been apart for a very long time. Just like Elria, Reid also never forgot about her as he wondered what Elria would think of the peaceful world he had lived in. After seeing Reid's sincerity, Alicia gave him a passing grade for the proposal. Alicia then mentioned the conditions for accepting the engagement, and that was to qualify as a mage at the same magic academy with Elria. Wondering how he could prove himself, Alicia suggested that Reid could just use his strength. Alicia then called for Galleon as she wanted to test Reid's fighting capabilities. Reid agreed with Alicia's terms and mentioned that he would avoid all of Galleon's attacks and only land one of his own. Before starting the fight, Reid asked for Alicia not to complain if he happens to destroy the whole building. Before Galleon and Reid could engage in their mock battle, they needed to change locations. Alicia explained that the room was a magic training facility managed by the country, allowing non-mages to participate in magic combat. As Alicia prepared to speak with Elria, she requested Galleon to assess Reid's abilities thoroughly. Turning to Reid, Galleon proposed that they should enjoy their mock battle. Prior to the commencement, Reid inquired if Galleon was truly comfortable with the agreed-upon terms. Galleon affirmed, expressing confidence that Reid would find it challenging to land an attack. To sweeten the deal, Galleon added that if Reid could land an attack, he would be allowed to call him Daddy, to which Reid promptly suggested father-in-law as an alternative. As the mock battle began, Galleon's movements were so swift that his fist closed in on Reid's head within seconds. However, Reid proved agile enough to evade the attack, earning Galleon's compliment on his reaction. Attempting a counter with a kick from above, Reid was taken aback when he realized Galleon's fist was approaching him. After his attack was blocked, Galleon intensified his pace, launching serious attacks. Evading Galleon's strikes, Reid was impressed by their power. Excited, Galleon felt the training was akin to sparring with Elria and saw no need to hold back. Reid apologized to Galleon and decided it was time to make his move. In the adjacent room, Elria was startled by a knock on the door. When Alicia entered and sought to talk, Elria promptly interrupted, eager to learn about Reid's situation. After informing Elria that Galleon was currently engaged in a mock battle with Reid, Alicia sought confirmation that Reid was indeed the person Elria had been searching for. Upon Elria's affirmation, Alicia smiled, expressing surprise at Elria finding Reid. Elria, initially worried about being wrong, felt relieved after discovering Reid. When Alicia inquired about Elria's feelings for Reid, Elria admitted her affection. As Elria noticed her confidence waning, she explained that these feelings were new to her, and now seemed the right time to express her liking for him. When Alicia remarked on Reid and Elria thinking alike as if they had shared a past, Elria was taken aback. Although Elria hadn't planned to keep anything about her previous life from her mother, she insisted it was her and Reid's secret. Thanking Alicia for her understanding, Elria was surprised when Alicia asked if she had confessed her feelings to Reid. Alicia expressed disappointment after learning that Elria had not yet communicated her feelings. Having spoken with Reid, Alicia sensed he was a good man. Intrigued, Alicia teased Elria, attempting to coax the truth from her. Contemplating Reid, Alicia considered acknowledging him and having Galleon train him. When Elria inquired about what Reid and Galleon were currently doing, Alicia disclosed the terms for approving their engagement, evaluating Reid's abilities. Elria then revealed to Alicia that Reid was unable to use magic, though he was very strong, putting Galleon in danger. After Galleon was blasted off from the house, Alicia's expression immediately displayed regret. Alicia was still dumbfounded after witnessing her husband being blasted off from their house. When Reid saw Elria, he asked if she had seen Galleon. After learning that Galleon had flown past their room, Reid was shocked by the damage he had caused even though he had held back. When Elria asked for an explanation from Reid, he responded that since he was told not to hold back, he tried punching Galleon lightly. After witnessing Reid's power, Alicia asked Elria what Reid really was. Elria smiled and responded that the man she likes was the strongest. After a month had passed since the annex of the Caldwin estate was smashed into pieces, Reid was checking the historical records in the royal library. He expected that the village library might not have the information he needed, but he was surprised that the royal family library also did not contain any history regarding Altine or the hero. When Elria called Reid's attention and told him that he had received a letter, Reid wondered if he had informed the village about the engagement between him and Elria. After reading the letter that came from her mother, Reid shared with Elria how her mother thinks of their engagement as a prank and that the village chief asked for souvenirs from the royal capital. When Elria asked if he had gone to the royal capital yet, Reid shared that he has since he was thoroughly taught proper manners and courtesy by Elria. Elria then suggested that they go shopping so that Reid would have something to wear when he takes the examination in the academy. Seeing his outfit, Reid could understand that his appearance may not pass as Elria's fiancé. Before the two leave, Elria compliments Elria's look and hopes that they enjoy their date. While walking in the street, Elria noticed that the clothes Reid was wearing were familiar. She then asked if those were her father's, to which Reid confirmed it and explained that he had borrowed it from Galleon, though he was hesitant at first after putting Galleon through such an ordeal. Elria then suggested that Reid should focus on finding something that would suit him better. After trying out the clothes, Reid then enjoyed delicious food. Reid complimented the food of the current time as he could tell that the food would have been unthinkable 1,000 years ago. Elria became embarrassed after Reid pointed out that she had breadcrumbs. When Reid tried to remove the breadcrumbs, he suddenly got excited and ended up breaking the table. After having their meal, Elria then asked Reid to follow her as she wanted to show him something. Elria then showed Reid the Vigalta Royal Magic Academy, to which Reid found it very huge. Elria then shared that she could have enrolled in the academy when she was 12 years old but postponed her enrollment because she had to look for Reid. The king also asked Elria to postpone her enrollment since it coincided with the princesses, and as a result, Elria received sweets. When Elria asked Reid if there was someone he liked in his hometown, Reid responded that after living such a long life, he could only see the people as his grandchildren. Reid also shared how he was thinking about her all the time while she was looking for him. Elria expressed how she didn't want to fight Reid and that she wanted to spend time together with him. Glad that she got engaged to Reid, Elria extended her hand and asked Reid to take good care of her. The two shook hands as they agreed on helping each other out. The Royal Magic Academy of Vigalta was a grand institution for mages. Reid was amazed by people from other counties enrolling in such a prestigious academy. Reid then asked Elria how long she was going to hide behind him. Elria was nervous, feeling that everyone was staring at her. Hearing Reid complain that walking was hard, Elria thought a piggyback ride would be easier. Reid pointed out that this would only embarrass her further, and everyone was staring because she was cute. When Elria asked if Reid thought the same, Reid tried to avoid the question, but Elria insisted he respond since it was important to her. Elria was surprised when Reid responded that she was indeed cute, and he would even want to brag about it. Elria was grateful and promised Reid that she would do her best to make him proud. When Reid asked if she could let go of his sleeves, Elria held his arm tighter, mentioning that it was her lifeline. When they finally met a person from the academy, Reid told her they were from the Caldwin family, and they were asked to follow her. The academy staff couldn't believe she was guiding Elria personally, known as the reincarnation of the sage. When she asked Reid how he was related to the Caldwin family, Elria answered that he was her fiancé. It took some time for the academy staff to register what Elria said, and when she finally realized it, she was deeply shocked. After congratulating them, the academy staff asked Reid about his distinguished family. When Reid responded that he was not from a noble family but rather just a commoner, the staff refused to believe Reid's words. They then heard a lady giving everyone a warning that another fire blast from the dragon she was riding would happen again. The staff introduced the lady as Rufus Laelis of the Sirios Federation. The Sirios Federation was a country that specializes in summoning magic, values strength and talent, where one's superiority was determined by what monster they had enslaved. After hearing the benefits of enrolling in the academy, Reid realized it was essentially a proxy war for other countries. Reid was impressed after learning that Rufus was able to handle 4 dragons, earning her the title of Dragon Princess. Elria, jealous of the attention, told Reid that she could summon many things. Reid believed her, and he asked Elria to show him something spectacular next time, to which Elria also agreed. As they arrived at the location for their examination, they were instructed to destroy the object using their magic. When Elria asked if the staff could make it more challenging, Reid warned her not to cause trouble for others. Hearing that Elria was unsatisfied with the examination, the staff summoned a simulated designed beast for training. Satisfied with the updated examination, Elria asked Reid to watch over her. Elria cast multiple magic circles, wanting to show Reid a slightly stronger spell. When Elria destroyed not just the simulated beast but also everything around it, Reid complimented her, though he did not expect the spell to be more flashy. Meanwhile, the staff was sitting on the ground in total disbelief. When Elria shared that she did many things aside from the spell that caused damage, Reid patted her head, amazed, thinking it was like the strongest set of greed. The staff was surprised that Reid was still calm after seeing such a devastating spell. Reid responded that it just became ordinary to him after seeing the spell multiple times. The staff, still in total disbelief, explained that the power produced in Elria's spell was at the same level as a 10th tier magic, something she had never seen anyone other than those registered as special rank mages use. When Reid asked about the evaluation he would get for putting out the destruction left by Elria's spell, the staff explained that since the fire was caused by magic, it would require magic of the same tier to offset it. Reid would be evaluated on par with Elria if he put out the fire. After hearing the explanation, Reid used a spell by just punching the air. After putting out the fire, Elria complimented Reid, saying his punch looked like what he usually did in their past life. Elria then patted Reid's head, complimenting him for being humble. The staff mentioned that the headmaster was calling for both of them. As they met with the headmaster, they were asked to hold back while in the academy. Elise Rummel, the headmaster of Vegalta Royal Magic Academy, was informed by the king that Elria had extraordinary talent in the field of magic, which she witnessed in her office. Elise then asked Elria to use just 5th-tier magic, since her spells were so strong that she might end up killing someone. She reminded Elria that if she didn't comply, she would be expelled. Elise then asked Reid what he was, as she could not comprehend his very existence. Reid then asked Elria about the aging progress of the elves since she was once an elf. Reid concluded that Elise stopped growing before she stopped aging, which Elise found insulting. Elise accurately guessed that what Reid did wasn't magic. When she asked what he did, Reid responded that all he did was just a normal punch since he can't use any magic. Regardless of their powers, Elise asked them to hold back. Reid expressed his concern for the request, since he was asked by the head of the Caldwin family to produce reasonable results. Elise mentioned that she had received a report from Alicia regarding their situation, realizing that it was her responsibility for underestimating Reid. To compromise, Elise told them that she could lift the restriction only during exams, but still asked for them to at least not go overboard. Elise then expressed her surprise as she did not expect to hear their names at the same time. Reid became curious about what Elise meant, to which she then explained that it was just a story he had heard from her grandfather that was also passed down only amongst elves. When Reid insisted Elise tell him his story, she revealed that the story of Reid, once called the hero, was in love with the sage. Reid was surprised to learn that the history of the hero had been adapted and turned into a love story, where the hero was in love with the sage. As Elise imagined what it might look like, she shared that the hero was an enemy of the sage, but they both wished for peace. The two had been fighting each other for more than 50 years to prevent any serious damage to their forces. However, during the battle, the sage got sick and died. Upon receiving the news, the hero invaded the Vegalta royal castle all by himself. The hero who arrived at the royal castle was in a tattered and near-death state. Curious about the reason the hero gave for going to the royal castle, Elise found it very cool and shared the exact phrase that Reid used before he passed away. Elise became more excited as she shared her opinion that only lovers would go through such lengths. Elise wished that the sage could hear the thoughts of the hero, as she was sure the sage would be delighted. When Elise tried to share more stories passed down by the elves, Reid raised his hand and thanked Elise for sharing the story with them. Reid then apologized as it seemed Elria was in no shape to continue, and they may have to take their leave. Seeing how easily startled Elria was before dismissing them, Elise asked the two to strictly adhere to the ability restrictions, and then congratulated them on their acceptance to the Vegalta Magic Academy. Although Reid did not think of the story as bad, Elria explained that she did not know what had happened, but the hero's story became so popular that it was passed down among the elves. Elira was ashamed of what happened to their story that she didn't have the courage to tell Reid, thinking that it might make him feel unpleasant. With a sad look, Elria asked if the story was a mistake. Reid released a sigh and told Elria that it wasn't a mistake, and that the story passed down among the elves was something that actually happened. Elria's eyes widened after learning that Reid came to the royal castle alone and battered. Reid then tried to pass it off that he had to get beaten one-sidedly since he had to see and couldn't just kill Tiana. When Elria asked Reid the words he said before his passing, Reid was caught off guard and just told Elria that he didn't say anything. Reid then avoided the conversation as he reminded Elria that there are more important things to do, such as reporting to Alicia and the others that they have passed the exam. Back in the House of Caldwin, Alicia and the others congratulated Reid and Elria for passing and getting into the academy. After informing Reid that they would be commuting from the academy's dormitory, Alicia asked him to take care of Elria since she was shy and clumsy. Galleon grabbed Reid by the shoulders and asked the same thing from Reid. Galleon then asked one more important thing from Reid, which was not to make any advances towards Elria until they're married. Reid respected Alicia and Galleon's request, as he knew that the penalty for breaking those promises was a death penalty. As Reid and Elria began their academy life, they were handed a key to their dormitory room. Curious, Reid asked if he was sharing a room with Elria. The dormitory person responded that in the academy there were nobles who were already engaged or married when they entered. As long as there were no special circumstances, the academy would arrange for them to share the same room. After learning of the policies for engaged students, Reid asked Elria if she was fine with it. Elria expressed her relief that she could stay with Reid and not some random girl. Reid found their situation convenient since Alicia did ask him to take care of Elria, to which Elria was a bit annoyed and told Reid that she was not that hopeless. After entering their dormitory room, Reid was pleasantly surprised as it was a very nice room. When Reid mentioned that he was hungry and planned to cook a meal, Elria was surprised as she did not expect that Reid knew how to cook. When Reid mentioned that he had learned simple cooking during camping trips, Elria remembered that they used to hunt rabbits whenever they saw one. The two then shared their struggles and the activities they enjoyed in their free time. While laughing at how similar their experiences were in the past life, Reid remembered that because of the smell, Elria was able to find him. Elria laughed, remembering such fun memories, and suggested to Reid that they just cook simple meals like they used to. When asked by Reid why she would go out of her way to eat like before, Elria responded that nostalgia might bring out flavors. As the two started cooking and preparing their meals, Elria shared that the last time she cooked was with her mother when she was still young. She remembered that her mother praised her a bit. Unfortunately, other than that, Elria no longer received praises from her mother. Reid patted Elria's head as he reassured her that her mother would praise her since she was now praised throughout generations. After preparing their meal, Reid and Elria had a conversation while eating. Elria was curious about what Reid was like when he was young in the previous life. Reid only remembered that he was always alone. In the previous life, Reid had a weak body when he was a kid. He was always bedridden with a fever, so Reid's memories of his parents were hazy. The Altine Empire was a country where there was a huge gap between the rich and the poor. With the lack of resources and the country's policy to exploit land, kids from the villages were going off to become soldiers, which was the norm at the time. Kids like Reid at the time couldn't become a soldier and were just treated as a burden. Frustrated with having such a weak body, every time Reid got a fever, he would keep on training until he eventually gained the body he has now. While achieving new feats, the people around Reid started to notice his superhuman abilities and ended up calling him a monster. When his own mother also called him a monster, Reid was then driven away and was given to a mercenary group that was passing by at the time. Though the mercenaries pitied Reid at first, when they witnessed how dangerous Reid was, they suddenly changed their view of him. Eventually, no one dared to approach Reid as he had killed enemies who stood in his way. Reid continued being a mercenary while searching for someone like him. His achievements started piling up, and eventually people started calling him a hero. Hearing Reid's struggles, Elria was amazed at Reid for surviving such a harsh environment. Reid was surprised by the sudden compliment, to which Elria explained that she only returned the favor and praised him. Elria pointed out that receiving a compliment makes someone happy, and since Reid had always been alone, he never noticed its value. Now that Reid was no longer alone, Elria promised that whenever Reid works hard, she would praise him a lot. Reid broke out laughing when Elria pointed out that even in their past life, she was way older than him. Elria immediately turned red and annoyed Reid after being called an older sister by him. When Reid and Elria checked the bedroom, they were surprised that they only received one bedroom. Elria could not hide her embarrassment when Reid did not mind that they shared the bed together. When Elria shared that she has some unique habits when sleeping, especially if she was drowsy, Reid offered the bed to her and decided to sleep in the living room. Reid was caught off guard when Elria pulled his sleeve and mentioned that she would feel lonely and wished to sleep together. After hearing Elria's request, Reid could not help it and told her that he would be okay doing anything with her. Scratching his head, Reid was left with no choice and decided to just think about Galleon's face when he sleeps. After spending their first night at the dormitory house, Reid finally woke up as morning arrived. He noticed that his right side felt kind of heavy, but when he realized it was because of Elria, Reid was somewhat glad to have her with him. He tried waking her up, but to no avail. He then instructed her to take a bath to fully wake up. When Elria finally agreed, Reid felt relieved and planned to prepare breakfast while she was still in the bathroom. However, he was caught off guard when Elria suddenly suggested they take a bath together. Seeing that Elria was about to fall asleep again, Reid had no choice but to agree to go to the bathroom together. After preparing a warm bath for Elria, Reid noticed she was still in a daze. When he realized Elria was out of it, he immediately declined when she suggested taking a bath together again. Thinking they would be late for class with such a slow pace, Reid agreed to hold her hand while she took a bath. However, he was once again caught off guard when Elria started stripping in front of him. When Elria had finally undressed, she became confused after seeing Reid covering his face with a towel. Reid then lied, telling her that he bathes while covering his face. Elria bought the lie, went inside the bathtub, and held Reid's hand. The two enjoyed each other's company as they held hands. When they finally arrived at school, Elria was curious why Reid seemed so tired. The drained Reid wasn't sure if it was a good or bad thing that she didn't remember what had happened. As they opened the classroom door, Elria was immediately bombarded by the students waiting for her. Overwhelmed, Elria immediately hid behind Reid and told everyone that he was more amazing than her. Reid was nervous at first when everyone's eyes were fixed on him, but he calmed down after realizing that the students also idolized him. Delighted by their words, Reid introduced himself and announced that he would soon claim the Caldwin name while being just a commoner. The announcement shocked everyone, as they did not expect Reid to be a commoner. The students were immediately cautious of their words. However, one student still did not believe that a commoner could dispel higher-tier magic from Elria. Reid recognized the student as Farag, the son of the Verminen family. Before entering the academy, Alicia had told Reid about the Verminen family and its long lineage. The current generation had Farag, known for his talent and vast magic power, though Alicia had a different opinion about Farag, assessing him as self-centered and always blaming others. Holding back her anger, Alicia asked Reid to do something about Farag's character if he ever got a chance. Farag doubted the credibility of Reid's connections and insulted him for ruining the Kaldwin name that had protected Vigalta for a long time. Reid remained calm and responded that Farag could confirm his connections with Alicia himself. Farag became more enraged, not accepting that Reid, a commoner, could enter the academy. Reid explained that he had properly passed the written and practical exams and gained Principal Elise's approval. Farag became more annoyed when Reid tried talking to him calmly, accusing him of having a creepy grandpa attitude. Farag's classmates tried to calm him down, warning him against butting heads with someone connected to the Kaldwin family. Still, Farag did not believe Reid had any connection and guessed he might just be some servant. But when Reid pulled Elria and announced that he was her fiancé, everyone was in total shock. Reid and Elria looked for seats, barely containing their laughter while everyone was left speechless. Reid expressed his satisfaction after seeing Farag's bewildered look. When Elria reminded Reid of his bad attitude, he defended himself, explaining that he scolded them since they were getting cocky. After hearing Reid's explanation, Elria realized why the Altine soldiers were so obedient. A student called Reid and Elria's attention, offering them a seat. Grateful for the offer, Reid introduced himself, and the student introduced himself as Weasel Blanche. Elria mentioned that she had heard of the Blanche family name before. Weasel revealed that his family were magic equipment engineers, and the tools Elria used were made by his sister. Elria immediately changed her attitude, and the three continued having a pleasant conversation. Since the Blanche family were engineers, Elria was curious why Weasel took the test for mages even though there were classes for magic engineers. Weasel explained that he was more of the practical type. On top of being a mage, Weasel wanted to know what's not important, not just for himself but also for his surroundings, creating a more practical magic tool, which was his goal. When Weasel mentioned that he might be a nuisance, he was surprised when Reid responded that he didn't mind. Reid explained that people who complained about the tools just didn't understand them. Weasel's act of creating a good magic tool aligned with the school's pursuit and development of magic ideology. After gaining some confidence from Reid's words, Weasel asked Reid if he could look at his magic tool. Curious after learning that Reid was able to dispel Elria's Tier 10 magic, Elria explained that Reid's magic powers were special, and he couldn't use magic tools since his mana flow was broken. Disappointed, Weasel then asked Reid if he could destroy the object in his hand. Weasel reassured Reid that it was fine as it was a spare. He also explained that he wanted to know under what circumstances the magic tool would break down as a magic engineer. After boasting that the tools he personally created had high durability, he was in total disbelief when Reid easily broke his tool. After examining his broken tool, Weasel asked if Elria had any idea of the phenomenon surrounding Reid. When Elria explained that Reid's magic was different from everyone else, Weasel agreed with her theory as he was still unsure why the protective magic and engravings were damaged. Weasel shared that he may have to observe and analyze the tool a couple of times since he still couldn't grasp the explanation or come up with a conclusion. When Weasel asked Reid how he was able to obtain such magic power, Reid responded that he had already forgotten about it since it happened a long time ago. He then noticed someone eavesdropping in their conversation and called the student's attention. The student hiding underneath the table was so surprised that she ended up hitting her head. Though the student claimed she was not a stranger, Reid still asked for security. The student then introduced herself as Millis Lambat from the village called Noaber. Millis also shared that since she was enrolled through scholarship, she was thinking of using it as an opportunity to make human friends. When Elria approved of Millis, and was then promoted from a suspicious person to a classmate, Millis was ecstatic as she shared how she had thought about the introduction all night. After Reid asked Millis the reason why she was eavesdropping, Millis responded that she was just searching for anyone that she thought she could reach out to. When Reid mentioned that she could reach out like usual, Millis cried out as she found it impossible. Even though Reid tried giving points to Millis on how to start a conversation, the two ended up arguing for having the same status, a commoner. Their argument reached a point where they were now listing the best qualities of their hometowns. Millis, now feeling hopeless, jumped right at Reid as she shared that she only wanted a fellow countryside friend. Elria immediately jumped in between the two and caught Millis. When Elria mentioned that she wanted to be friends with Millis, Elria suddenly thought of a dog when Millis shook her hand since she was overjoyed. After Reid and Weasel introduced themselves to Millis, she cried so much as finally gained 3 new friends. Reid then noticed that the teacher had not arrived yet, which made Millis suggest that the teacher may have lost their way. All of a sudden, a huge explosion came from the classroom entrance and destroyed the walls. A black-haired lady appeared, feeling relieved thinking that Elise might get mad if she was late. The black-haired lady then introduced herself as the homeroom teacher. The students were taken aback upon discovering that their homeroom teacher was Alma Kanos, a specially ranked mage. Alma attained this special rank due to her ability to exterminate huge disaster-level monsters single-handedly. The students were in total shock, assuming that Alma had received orders from the king to participate in a large-scale subjugation in the dragon's nest. When a student inquired about the king's orders, Alma nonchalantly responded that she had already completed them. Alma then informed everyone that both the king and the principal had personally requested her to become a teacher. After sharing her expectations for the class, Alma proceeded to outline her plans. Explaining the mechanics of qualifying as a mage, Alma emphasized to everyone that the most crucial part of the class was the evaluation. Even if they achieved the highest score individually, if their class did not pass, it would mean they wouldn't become mages. Alma reminded everyone that, as mages, their duty was not only to focus on themselves, but also to prioritize acting as a group. Alma then called out Millis and asked her about the duties of a mage. Though caught off guard, Millis managed to provide an appropriate answer, which Alma agreed with. However, Alma pointed out that there were still more duties for mages, such as evacuating the surrounding residents to a safe zone, securing evacuation routes, isolating danger zones, conducting rescues, and many other tasks. Realizing they had more responsibilities than they initially thought, some students hoped their class did not have any deadweight. Alma reminded everyone that individual evaluations would be held once a month, while class evaluations would take place 4 times a year. After reading the teaching manual, Alma found lectures to be a hassle and decided to conduct hands-on training. Using her magic item, Alma transported everyone to a separate space for a mock battle. The students were very nervous at the thought of fighting a special rank. When Alma mentioned that anyone could leave if no one raised their hand, Farag raised his hand, introduced himself, and informed Alma that he would be her opponent. Hearing Farag boasting about his skills, he was surprised when Alma mentioned that she would be fighting seriously and might break a few of his bones. When Farag immediately changed his mind about the mock battle, Elria raised her hand and seized the opportunity to fight Alma. Upon hearing Elria's name, Alma immediately recognized her since she had been given a heads up by Principal Elise. Since Elria was only permitted to use 5-tier magic, Alma decided to match her. When Alma swung her weapon, causing a wave of magic, she was amazed since Elria was able to block it so easily. After casting another spell and getting blocked, Alma assessed how Elria's spell worked and asked if she had any more spells. When Elria asked Alma if she had specific requests, Alma responded that Elria could use any type of spell. However, she would have to fight Elria for real, as Alma was curious about how many bones she would break. After Elria agreed to the terms, Reid then asked everyone to move away, warning that they could get injured if they were too close to the fight. While everyone else moved to a safe spot, Reid and Weisel decided to stay, eager to witness the fight up close. When Alma cast an offensive spell on Elria, she was surprised that Elria's lower-tier magic could compete with her higher-tier spell. Confused about what was happening, Reid explained to Reid that Elria didn't cast the spells directly but used them to cast more spells. When Reid mentioned that Elria could cast 1,000 lower-tier spells, Millis was in total disbelief. Reid explained that Elria creates a bunch of spells and puts them together. After learning about Elria's capabilities, Weasel asked Reid if he had seen the full potential of Elria's spell. Reid responded yes, as he had always kept his eyes on Elria. What made Reid crazy about Elria was that she was brighter than anyone else. As the two spells clashed, Elria was amazed that Alma could deal with all of her spells. However, she noticed that Alma was still not yet serious. Alma smiled as her charade was discovered, and she then summoned a lot of skeletons, which she called the Death Brigade. When Alma told Elria to overcome the Black Flag as if her life depended on it, Elria asked how Alma knew those words. Hitting a nerve, Elria then told Alma that only one person could say those exact words. Sensing that Elria's attitude had somewhat changed, Millis asked Reid what was going on but was surprised not to find Reid beside them. As the huge skeleton was about to attack Elria, it was immediately defeated by Reid's punch. Reid then apologized for getting in between their fight as he could not stand someone using his own words. Recognizing Reid as the other irregular Alma had been told about, she then asked Reid how he was able to send her magic flying without using magic. Reid offered to answer Alma's question if she answered his. Reid could barely recognize the flag, but after hearing his own line, it all made sense to him. Reid then asked Alma why she was holding Altine's banner. Elise's voice suddenly echoed in the space that Alma created. After receiving an earful from Elise, Alma canceled her spell and told Reid that they could talk about his question later. Alma then encouraged everyone to be strong like them. However, after witnessing their fight, some immediately lost hope. But Alma's words still reached some students as they gained some encouragement. Alma then asked those who had fallen asleep to wake up, as she was going to teach them the most important fundamentals as a mage, instructing everyone to run until they passed out. After Alma instructed everyone to run, she was disappointed with most of the students as they were all out of stamina. Reid, accustomed to harsh training, did not break a sweat after running, while others like Weasel were so out of breath. Seeing that everyone could no longer move, Elria decided to use 6th tier transport magic. As everyone was being lifted up, Millis cried out, expressing her desire to take a bath. This gave Alma an idea, and she suggested that they all go to the dormitory's joint large bath. The tired Millis was re-energized after hearing Alma's suggestion, and invited Elria to join them. Alma found it convenient that while everyone was relaxing, she would have a small time to talk with Reid. At the dormitory bath, Elria had lots of questions about Reid and Alma's relationship and about the Altine banner. Seeing Elria's body up close, Millis found it very unfair that both Elria's hair and body were silky smooth. Embarrassed that her body parts were being described, Elria immediately covered Millis's mouth. Elra wished to discuss something with Millis and asked what good gift she could think of to give to a certain person. Elria was surprised as Millis accurately guessed who the person was. Even though Elria denied the accusations, her actions had already exposed her to everyone, as they all could notice that Elria had feelings for Reid. Elria asked Millis for help about the gift since she had never given a present to someone before, and she wanted to give Reid a congratulatory present. Since Millis does not fully know Reid nor Elria, she suggested giving Reid something that he would like. Elria threw some ideas on what Reid would like. Millis liked the ideas, but as she pointed out that as a fellow country girl, she would rather have something with a more permanent form. Grateful for the idea. However, Elria immediately gave up as she could not think of anything permanent to give to Reid. Elria became depressed since she doesn't know what to give to Reid even though they have known each other for more than 50 years. As Millis pleaded with Elria to not drown herself, she asked Elria to think of the moments where Reid was happy. Elria then remembered that whenever Reid fights her, he'd always laugh and enjoy himself. As Elria expressed the type of gift that would give the same feeling when they, Reid and her, fight in battle, Millis hugged her tightly as she found it very cute. While unintentionally suffocating Elria, Millis became jealous of Reid and gave Elria her full support. Inside the classroom, Alma apologized for making Reid wait as Elise gave her an earful. Reid did not mind and immediately wanted answers as to how Alma gained the Altane's banner. When Alma asked if Altane was the name of a country, Reid asked her not to play dumb after using her magic tool. After seeing how serious Alma was that she had no knowledge of Altine, Reid guessed that the Altine banner was not something that could be recognized as a banner. Alma revealed that only people from the Kanos name who have inherited the spell knew of the banner, and she then asked Reid about his real identity and the connection he has to the banner. Reid apologized as he could not answer her question. However, she gave Alma an opportunity to ask anything aside from her first question. Reid gave the choices into Alma's hands. If she could deduce Reid's identity based on his answers, or if he could answer her without declaring anything, with those options laid, Reid would then know if he could trust her. First, Alma asked Reid about his opinion on methodical people. After hearing Reid's opinion about it, Alma then asked for his opinion about the moonshines. As for the last question, Reid asked Alma if she really was sure about it. Calling Reid Her Excellency, Alma asked if he still remembered her name. Reid smiled as he only knew one name that called him Excellency, and that was no other than Liat. When Reid asked if Alma was related to Liat, Alma revealed that Liat was the name of her ancestor. Liat was the one who made the memorandum and passed it down to their generation. Reid could not believe that Liat would even leave a memorandum for a millennium. Alma then agreed not to ask something related to her ancestor, to which Reid pleaded not to bring up the topic again, as it was the very reason why he wanted to talk to her. After Alma made it clear that she did not know the country Altine, as well as the banner since it has been passed down along with the memorandum. When Reid asked about the hero and Reid Friedrich, he received the same answer as what Elise had given him before. Reid remembered that Liat did not just call him Excellency, but also hero, yet it was not mentioned in his very own memorandum. Alma was surprised when Reid shared his theory that someone was trying to erase the existence of the hero. To manipulate a personal memorandum was logically impossible. However, Reid had already seen irrational things in reality. Curious as to why his story still existed among the elves, Alma explained the elves' oral tradition, sharing information from mouth to mouth without any medium. After learning what had happened to the elves' oral tradition, Reid instructed Alma to tell him anything moving forward, as he deduced that she knew a lot more about history. Even though Alma agreed to Reid's request, she was still annoyed that he nonchalantly gave orders to a special rank. Since Reid was well respected and loved by her ancestors, Alma left it at that and asked if Elria was the same as Reid, but was immediately disappointed at herself after realizing that she picked a fight with the real sage. The two ended their conversation as Reid counted on her for any help he might need. After the talk with Alma, several days passed. The conditional exams were now starting the day after tomorrow. Millis asked the others if they had any plans for their day off. However, she was immediately lectured by Reid that even though Elria had praised her magic, she still had to train her combat skills. Millis defended herself and asked for assistance from Elria. However, she was so sleep-deprived that she was sleeping while sitting. Millis and Weasel then asked if there was something going on between Reid and Alma, since they were becoming more friendly and as well as being called Excellency. Farag, who was also at the cafeteria, lectured Millis for being too noisy and told her to prostrate herself when apologizing to someone higher than her. Farag was annoyed when Millis refused to prostrate herself. Angered that a commoner like Millis was using the same magic Grand, Farag tried teaching Millis a lesson and cast a spell in front of her. Reid saw what Farag was about to do. He immediately jumped in between them and deflected Farag's spell. Reid then grabbed Farag's head and lectured him about the dangers of magic. After being thrown by Reid, Farag still acted out, telling Reid that a barbarian like him needed punishment. In front of Farag, Reid took his magic tool and broke it in front of him, making Farag in total disbelief. Even though Reid had saved Millis, she still found it disappointing and asked Reid to only do cool things when Elria was awake. When Elria was woken up by Millis, she was still out of her wits and immediately hugged Reid. Embarrassed by what was happening, Reid excused themselves and decided to head back first. Walking back to their dormitory room, Reid was curious as to what makes Elria very busy to the point that she was overexerting herself. When Elria responded that she wanted to make Reid happy, she then later realized that Reid was carrying her and was totally shocked. When Elria shared that she was going to push herself more, Reid agreed, but insisted that Elria do it in moderation. Wondering if Reid would not ask for the reason, Reid knew that Elria was not hiding something from him and doing something dangerous. Reid then reassured Elria that as long as he was beside her, she could relax and do whatever she wanted. The students will be evaluated from real combat to reacting to various situations during the conditional examination. The examination will be held in a huge forest area within the academy, a special location where everyone from the 8 classes would gather. Alma warned the students that the forest behind the fence was a dangerous area inhabited by monsters. After informing the students about the dangers of the monsters, Alma announced that in today's exam they are going to enter at least rank E. After informing the students about the types of monsters they might face in the forest, Alma reassured them that medium-sized monsters had already been dealt with by their teachers beforehand. Alma explicitly told the students that even though the medium-sized monsters had been dealt with, the forest was still a dangerous area where carelessness and pride could not just injure them, but also take their lives. After reminding everyone, an old man explained the contents of the conditional exam to the students. The students were given a scenario and tasked to rescue people who had wandered into the dangerous area by mistake. Since dummies were placed inside the dangerous areas, the old man pointed out that the more dummies the students could rescue, the higher their score would be. When a student asked if they should act independently since they were being evaluated individually, Alma did not answer the student, but instead gave the students the most important thing in the exam, which was to guarantee the rescue. When the explanation was finished, Alma told the students that they could discuss among themselves since they still had 30 minutes. As Reid wanted to discuss what they would do, Weasel suggested that they split up since he and Millis would just be a burden to them. But Reid clarified to Weasel and Millis that Elria aside, he needed both of their help. Reid then gave everyone a situation where the human could not move, to which Weasel and Millis gave theories from an injury to a traumatic experience that rendered the human unable to move. Reid also pointed out that since he could not use magic, he could not tend to the dummies and could not accomplish the exam. Millis finally realized that if the dummies were magic tools, there was a chance that they could not be moved unless they were healed. Reid shared his plans with everyone, where he would beat the monsters, Weasel would carry a bunch of them using his magic tool, and Millis would be in charge of figuring out the mechanism. Millis was worried at first that Elria might have to do the examination alone, but was surprised to learn that Principal Elise specifically instructed Melia to do the quest alone. Millis then finally realized why Elria was instructed to do the exam alone, so that she could be evaluated accurately. Farag called their attention as he mentioned that Reid and the others do not understand anything. Farag then shared his opinion that the exam would have more than just rescuing, and that there was another goal. Farag then mentioned that subjugating large monsters would get them an even higher reward. However, Reid and Millis immediately did not buy into Farag's idea. Farag's idea gave Weasel worry since they were not informed how the teachers would know if they had failed or not. Farag then boasted to everyone that he has the power to take on a large monster while showing his magic tool. When Reid saw the magic tool, he unintentionally insulted it by calling it really short. Farag shared that the magic tool that Reid broke was somehow miraculously repaired by the Verminen's engineer. Before leaving, Farag vowed to make Reid cry. Reid was impressed by Farag's courage even after he was embarrassed in front of everyone. Before they start the examination, Elria patted Reid's head and asked him to be careful. Walking inside the forest, Reid's group was suddenly attacked by a huge monster. However, it was just easily defeated by Reid's kick. After assessing the monster, Reid was surprised that the monster was weak despite its huge size. Weasel shared that the smell of blood could also lure other monsters and make escaping harder, so avoiding blood on their clothes would be wise. Millis could not help but worry for Elria since she was all alone, but Reid reassured her that Elria would be just fine and could defeat anything with just a tier 1 spell. Millis could not believe Reid's words when he mentioned that Elria could beat an average person with just martial arts alone. When Weasel thought Reid's movements were interesting, this sparked an energy within Reid, and he offered to show him a little. While Reid was explaining to everyone, Weasel interrupted him and told him that there was a cave up ahead. When Weasel reassured them that there were no monsters inside the cave, Reid was relieved as he already assumed that there was a dummy inside it. Millis was curious about how Reid knew that there would be a dummy inside the cave. Reid gave Millis a scenario, pointing out that the safe place for a dummy would be inside the cave. After seeing the cave up close, Reid suggested that he would take the lead while Weasel watched their surroundings, and Millis acted as their support. When Reid raised their lamp, he immediately told everyone that he had found 5 dummies. As Weasel sensed multiple mana circuits, he guessed that they would dispel if there were 2 people or more. When Millis tried activating a spell on one of the dummies, she was surprised when it suddenly moved. Millis shouting worried Reid. However, he was reassured by Weasel that she was just startled by the dummy's mechanism. After seeing a timer ticking down on the dummy's leg, Weasel theorized that the dummy most likely received a fatal injury, and the timer was the time limit to heal it. When Millis tried to heal the dummy but ended up being startled by the dummy's beeping sound, Weasel had to hit her head since she was much louder than the dummy. Reid shared an idea that the order of emergency treatment matters, and he suggested to Weasel to check the wounds. After assessing the dummy's wounds, Reid asked Millis to calm down as she started panicking again, and told her that he would give her instructions soon. While fighting off against a pack of monsters, Reid was also giving Weasel and Millis instructions on how to tend and take care of the wounds. After following Reid's instructions, Weasel and Millis were so relieved after solving the dummy's mechanism. As Reid complimented the two, Weasel could not help but ask Reid if he had seen people on the brink of death since the instructions he gave were so precise. Reid responded that he saw people who were on the brink of death, as well as those who could not be saved. Reid still thanked Weasel and Millis for performing emergency treatments even though it was just a dummy. Reid was startled when Millis suddenly shouted. When Millis mentioned that someone was coming, Reid was able to recognize them as Farrig and his 2 henchmen. Weasel then asked Reid to call the 3 over as they had received heavy injuries and that something was moving in the forest. After calling Farrig's attention, Reid then asked him to follow them inside the cave. When Reid asked if they were attacked by monsters, Farrig could not answer properly as he was shivering in fear. When Weasel sensed that the situation was bad, Reid momentarily froze and immediately ran outside. Before going out, Reid tasked Weasel and Millis to take those who were injured and carry them deep into the cave. Farrig, who once again saw the monster that attacked them, shrieked and froze in fear. Fortunately for Farrig, Reid was fast enough and dragged him deep into the cave to safety. When Reid asked Farrig if they picked a fight with the huge monster, Farrig clarified that they did not start a fight, but rather he froze after seeing the monster, and was only protected by Valk and Lucas. As Farrig cried and apologized for the two, Reid consoled and praised him for not abandoning his friends while running desperately. Before leaving, Reid instructed Weasel to cast a barrier after he exited. Farrig argued that Reid won't be able to take on the monster, but Reid reassured him that he already knew the monster was immune to magic. Reid promised that he wouldn't die, and that he was just going to win like the hero he once was. 1,000 years ago, the mages of the Vegalta country accused the Altine Empire of sending huge monsters into their territory. While the soldiers of the Altine Empire were fleeing, Reid was the only one walking towards the monsters. Despite being warned, Reid continued to face the monsters head-on. Calling the monster's attention, Reid asked if it could handle his sword. In the current time, the monster was bashing its head on the cave entrance as it tried to get in. Farrig was surprised when Reid informed them of the name of the monster and its purpose. Although Reid was familiar with the armored dragon, Farrig insisted that they stay hidden until the Academy sends out help. Reid shared his opinion that Elria could handle the armored dragon herself, but it still depended on whether she would come. However, they didn't have much time to wait. After confirming that Weasel still had a magic tool that could create barriers, Reid asked Millis to keep healing those who were injured. Agreeing with Reid's instructions, Millis only asked him to send the armored dragon flying. Emerging from the dark cave, Reid leaped towards the armored dragon and landed a hard punch. Reid's attack was strong enough to make the armored dragon lie on the ground. Since Reid used a sword when facing the creature in the past, he did not realize how hard the dragon's armor was. But he still was not fazed since compared to Elria, the armored dragon was weak. After hitting an uppercut, the armored dragon's whole body was lifted because of the force. Reid thought that he was able to break the dragon's head, but it looked like it wasn't that simple. When the armored dragon let out a roar, Reid was surprised by the sudden tremors. He then realized that the dragon was calling for more backup. Annoyed that he may have to fight the armored dragons barehanded, Reid wondered what he should do to ensure that the others could escape safely. Fortunately for Reid, Elria arrived just in time and easily took down one of the armored dragons. When the Academy could not send out help immediately, they released Elria's limiters to help those who were in need. Glad after seeing Elria, Reid asked her to help Millis and the others to be transported. After reaching out to Millis, Elria then transported everyone inside the cave to a much safer place. After reassuring Reid that everyone was now safe, Elria received a call and was surprised when Alma asked if she sent an entire cave to their location. After confirming the students' safety, Elria was relieved and told Alma that she was not going to blow away the armored dragons along the area with Reid, and asked Alma to protect the children. As the call ended, Elria then asked if they should go all out facing the dragons. Planning on punching the armored dragons until they all would be defeated, Elria gave an item that Reid could use to go all out. Elria reassured Reid that with her magic, she was sure that the sword she created could withstand anything. As Reid received the present that Elria was developing for a while, he could not contain his laughter as he accurately guessed Elria's action. Reid was beyond happy and could not describe how he was feeling. Reid was sure that Elria's magic that had always fought alongside him could withstand his mana. Elria then realized that for a long time that they have known each other, this was the first time that they were going to battle together. Finally, a united front after 1,000 years since Reid received a very good present from Elria, he plans to show her his serious power. Even though it has been a while since Reid hasn't used the move, he knows that his body would never forget. With one strong swing of his sword, Reid was able to blow away a huge part of the forest and made a huge hole in the ground. Seeing Reid's serious power, Elria could not help but be impressed. When the sword suddenly vanished, Elria apologized and told him that it was not a sword that he could always use. Reid did not mind, as he felt really good after going all out, but he expressed that he had way more fun fighting with Elria. As Alma surveyed the area where Reid and Elria were fighting the armored dragons, she immediately knew that Elise would faint after learning of the aftermath. After Alma gave the report, Elise bawled her eyes out as she could not believe what had happened. Alma then confronted the two. Even though Elria was given permission to use her full power, Reid was praised for how he wiped out the dragons. However, they were not given permission to alter the terrain. When the two expressed that they only got carried away as it became fun midway through the fight, Elise scolded Alma for agreeing with Reid and Elria. When Elise asked how they were able to blow away the exam area, Reid and Elria nonchalantly explained that using the sword Elria created, Reid blew everything away. While Elria vowed to make a sword that Reid could use more than once, Elise asked for sympathy as she would be the one that would report the situation to the higher-ups. Alma reported that she had not received any reports from the reinforcement Elise sent, but she did notice that a piece was broken off. Alma then gave the testimonies of those who had fought the armored dragon that their magic spells were reflected or nullified. The armored dragon also managed to cut Alma's magic damage in half. Because of the armored dragon, Alma's death brigade was slowed down and easily destroyed. After learning the capabilities of the armored dragon, Elise instructed Alma to call back the reinforcement as she would get a specialist to investigate the case. After learning that Farag also encountered the monster, Alma called him and asked what happened. Farag shared that they were just exploring the area when they encountered the monster. Valk and Lucas tried to cover for Farag and ended up being injured. After assessing what the monster looked like, Farag then erased his smell by walking on Holewalker grass, and to avoid heat detection, he burnt some trees. Alma praised Farag for his decision to stay inside the cave and wait for evacuation. Alma informed everyone that they should rest first and announced that they were going to disregard everyone's rating in this test. When Alma asked the students to keep quiet about the situation for now, Millis asked for the reason. Alma shared that all instructors from the school have observed the area but not one noticed the armored dragons. Weasel deduced that the monster just came out of nowhere. Alma then shared that they still need to consider everything and would have to do a thorough investigation into the matter. Hearing Alma's announcement, Reid theorized that a third party may be involved or that the perpetrator was inside the school. After reminding everyone not to spread the news, Alma asked everyone to go now except for Reid and Elria. After dragging both Reid and Elria away from the crowd, Alma asked Reid if she could talk about the matter with the presence of Elria. Reid then revealed that Elria had more knowledge of the armored dragons than he ever did. Upon learning of the monster's name, Reid asked Alma if it was the first time they had heard of the armored dragons. After sharing that she had never fought a monster that could affect one's magic, Alma pointed out how Farag did not know of such a being. Alma shared that the Verminen family gathers all sorts of information about all monsters in each area, and that they're the most knowledgeable about monsters in the country. Elria then shared what she knows about the armored dragons with Alma, as the armored dragons are monsters that eat mineral resources. and those minerals are then used to form the creature's shells. Elria explained that the monsters don't have strong enough shells to repel magic, but if they're strong enough, just like a millennium ago, there was a chance that someone was intentionally feeding them with high-quality magic ores. Alma shared that, according to history, there were monsters that could affect magic. However, none of them remained. Alma explained that those deemed a threat to magic were all hunted down thoroughly to extinction. This explained that the armored dragon should no longer exist. After having a word with Alma, Reid and Elria were then welcomed by Weasel and Millis at the resting area. After a careful assessment, Reid expressed that it was safe to share their identity with Weasel and Millis, to which Elria also agreed. While Reid and the others were enjoying their meal, they were suddenly interrupted when Farrig called them out and thanked them for saving Valk and Lucas. Farrig then immediately left after expressing his gratitude. A couple of days have passed, and Reid was once again annoyed at how Elria keeps going back to sleep. Reid then reminded Elria that Alicia would get mad and annul their engagement. When Elria wished for a hug, Reid offered a piggyback instead. Seeing that they no longer have the time, Reid opened his arms and hugged Elria. After informing Elria that her clothes were in the basket, she then tried it on. However, Elria was having a hard time matching the buttons of the blouse. Elria then asked Reid to do it and was amazed when Reid was able to button the blouse swiftly. When the two finally made it to class, they were immediately bombarded with praise by the other students. Curious as to how the students knew that it was them who defeated the armored dragons, the students revealed that Farrig shared the information with them. After informing the others that they can talk about it another time since the class was about to start, Reid immediately sat in his chair. When he woke Elria up, she was confused as to why he was so close. Reid then clarified that it was Elria who was the one seated close to him. Startled, Elria apologized and was embarrassed when Reid shared that being close to each other was not the first that had happened. When Reid explained what Elria usually does before arriving at school, she was so embarrassed and could not help but cry. Millis then reassured Elria that everything Reid said was not heard by Weasel since she covered his ears. After clarifying their status to Weasel, Reid and Elria smiled as they asked the two not to go straight home today as they want to share something with them. When Elria and Reid revealed their secret, they were surprised at how Weasel and Millis easily accepted the truth. Curious about why Reid and Elria were the ones more shocked, Millis shared that they could now rest, knowing the reason why Reid and Elria were so extraordinary. Weasel was more convinced that Reid and Elria's powers came from something more concrete, rather than not knowing where their absurd power came from. Reid shared that there was once a county called Altine, and they were always at war with Vigalta. Upon learning that the hero was on par with the sage, Millis was curious why the hero's information had not remained in history. Reid revealed that they have already done extensive research but still could not find anything related to the hero or Altine. He also shared his theory that the story wasn't just overwritten but as if it was erased. Though they were doing their best to search for answers, they were still short-handed. While Weasel expressed his way of helping the two by searching through the records of the Blanche family since they supply the royal family's magic equipment, Millis, on the other hand, asked what she could do since she was just the normal person of the group. Millis became excited upon learning that her hometown used to be one of Altine's lands. However, she was immediately disappointed upon learning that her hometown has been nothing more than countryside for over 1,000 years. Millis became more depressed when Elria tried to console her. However, Elria clarified that Millis's hometown may be similar to how elves lived in a secluded area, and there may be a high chance that information still remained through tradition. Weasel and Millis were happy to help, but it was also clear that they could only talk about the matter with trusted people. Millis immediately became nervous when Weasel pointed out that the people who tried altering history would target them as well. Though Reid was hesitant to tell them at first, he was sure that they were able to protect them from anything. After informing Weasel and Millis of the people that knew and how they were related, Weasel was instantly intrigued by the magic equipment from 1,000 years ago. After asking for their help, Weasel and Millis reassured the two that they would do their best to help out, since they could also gain some knowledge from the past. Alma then entered the room and informed Reid and Elria that they were being summoned by Elise. When Alma knocked on the principal's office door, she informed Elise that she had brought the two. All of a sudden, Elise bowed down in front of them as she apologized. Elise explained that even though Reid and Elria helped evacuate the students and the teachers, the royal family and the Mages Association still refused to give them honor. Elise became confused when Reid agreed with the royal family's decision. Reid explained that if the information such as defeating a special ranked monster in one hit would be known to the public, it would offset the destruction of the environment. After Reid accepted the higher-ups' decision, Elise was so grateful towards them. Elise informed Reid that the association still does not acknowledge Reid's power since it was still unknown, to which they decided to have Alma investigate it. When Elise revealed that the special rank mages decided to postpone Reid's test, she was surprised at how easily Reid accepted their decision. When Elria expressed her wish to fight a special rank mage, Elise immediately slammed her head as she could no longer take the stress. Reid and the others were pleased with the outcome, as they have a good reason to meet and exchange information. After transferring to a more secure room, Alma asked Reid about his current abilities but just ended up being disappointed with his straightforward answer. When Elria shared how Reid gained a unique magic power, she shared the theory that Reid's body got stronger as a side effect of the unique power he gained. After hearing Elria's theory, Alma was curious if Reid's powers surpassed the sage. Elria also shared with the two that Reid's powers may not be natural. When Elria reminded Reid of how he used to get sick in his past life, Alma shared a theory that Reid's body may have rejected the magic at first, but ended up being accustomed to his own magic power and eventually stabilizing. After sharing the possibility that someone from the distant future may have transfused an unknown power to Reid to save him, Reid had no complaints since it was thanks to the transfusion that he was alive. Alma suddenly froze as she remembered that she was tasked to give a letter to Reid from the royal family. At the Caldwin residence, Alice was infuriated when Reid informed her that he only had 2 hours before he went to the castle. After dressing Elria and Reid, the two then went to the royal castle. Arriving at the castle, the two never imagined that they would see the castle once again. As they were being greeted by the head butler Selvas, Reid apologized for Elria's behavior and explained that she was shy by nature. Selvas then reassured Elria that he was holding down the princess with his magic. However, they were surprised the princess showed up and personally greeted Elria. Reid was surprised when Christia, the first princess of the Vigalta kingdom, suddenly hugged Elria and told her that she had missed her. While Elria was pleading for Christia not to cling on to her, Selvas expressed his apologies for such a display. Selvas explained that Christia and Elria grew up together and are treating each other like sisters. When Reid tried introducing himself, Christia interrupted him and granted Reid permission to call her Chris. When Christia informed Reid that she only approved of half of him, Reid became curious about the reason. After explaining the reason why she approved of Reid, Christia still could not believe that someone who could not use magic became Elria's rival. When Reid asked if he was summoned to confirm his strength, Christia was surprised by Reid's reaction, as if he was already used to challenges. After hearing Reid's sweet talk, Christia was surprised as Reid exceeded her expectations. Christia then shared that she may consider acknowledging Reid if he could test his love for her. Christia then announced in the royal castle the first test, which would show who loves Elria the most. After expressing how Reid was taking Elria away from her, Christia still wanted to test if Reid does truly love Elria or not. After introducing the two competitors, Selvas revealed that the winner shall be determined as to who truly understands Elria the most. When Reid expressed how he would do his best, regardless of how he only knew Elria for such a long time, while Christia boasted about how she knew everything about Elria, from what she likes to what she does not like. When Elria spoke, Christia could not help herself but cry while being warned by Selvas that she would be penalized if she acted mannerless. When it was decided that Selvas would instead read the questions before Selvas could finish reading the question, Christia already pressed the button and answered the types of books Elria likes to read. When Elria confirmed that Christia's answer was correct, she immediately showed confidence to Reid as she did not need to hear the question to know the answer. After seeing Elria, who has high expectations of him, Reid felt pressured. When Christia answered again without finishing the question, Reid guessed that Christia was using magic. Elria called Selvas' attention as she decided to make up the next question. When Elria asked what specific meal she wanted to eat if she gets tired, Christia complained since the question was really specific. When Reid gave the answer, Elria confirmed that it was correct. Elria kept giving questions that only Reid knew, to which he ended up getting embarrassed answering private questions. When Selvas informed Elria that the next question would be the final one, Elria asked what she liked. When trying to answer first, Elria gave a sign that it was incorrect. When Reid asked if they could take a break while drinking water, Elria did not expect that Christia would worry about her. Christia then visited the two while they were resting as she did not expect to treat them so warmly. Christia then reminded how she needed the help of them both. It was then revealed that Christia knew of Reid's real identity as the hero, while Reid accurately deduced that the first princess was none other than Tiana, the sage's disciple. After assessing the situation, Reid could tell that Tiana did not reincarnate, to which Tiana confirmed and revealed that she only sent her consciousness from the past using her magic. Upon learning the truth, Elria suspected that it was Tiana that made her wear all the clothes when they were young. When Elria was about to lecture Tiana, she happily obliged. Elria pointed out that Tiana should not be happy being lectured. After their emotional reunion, Reid asked if there was something Tiana wanted to share with them since she already revealed herself. Confirming that she does want to tell them something, Tiana informs the two that Elria lost all her magic, which was the cause of her death. 1,000 years ago, an old Reid spoke to Liat, informing him that they would now head back as they had reached their daily quota. Liat expressed his concern to Reid, suggesting that Reid assign more guards besides him. However, Reid liked their current setup, thinking that having fewer guards was also better for the others. Out of nowhere, sharp objects almost hit Reid. After the surprise attack, Tiana showed up, intending to harm the hero, Reid. Unfortunately for Tiana, Reid's reactions were so sharp that he was able to dodge the surprise attack and even counter her by sweeping her leg, commenting on her lack of speed. Noticing Tiana casting a spell, Reid knelt down and evaded Tiana's attack once again. As Reid was commenting on how annoying Tiana's magic was, he was surprised to see Tiana suddenly being taken away. It was revealed that Elria took Tiana, ordering her to stop acting on her own. When Elria noticed that Tiana had run out of magic, she immediately shoved a recovery potion down her throat. Seeing the two mages scuffle, Reid laughed after learning that Tiana was already out of mana after a few attacks, and commented that it was still 100 years too early for her to try and take his head. Liat then mentioned that if it wasn't for Reid, dealing with time leap magic would be very hard. Reid responded that what he did was just prediction. If one knows how their enemy thinks, then knowing the next move would be easy. Reid told Liat that he could do the same. Although Liat somewhat agreed that he could make the same prediction as Reid, that didn't mean he could deal with it. Back at their base, Tiana asked Elria what she could do to stay in the time world longer. When entering time, the user alters their body using magic, which costs a lot of mana. Tiana shared her experience when entering time, commenting on how it felt like moving the current scene forward just a bit, and that she was moving her entire body so she could only see a couple of seconds into the future. Tiana then shared that she recently started to send only her consciousness ahead and got a couple of seconds more. However, it was still not enough to win against Reid, which frustrated her. Listening to Tiana, Elria believed that her concern was already in the realm of the soul or divine, which is beyond the realm of reason. Tiana stood up, telling Elria that there would be a chance if what she mentioned logically exists. Elria then told Tiana that it would be difficult for her since she is a human, but for an elf like her it was no problem. Shocked, Tiana was amazed by her capabilities. Elria was also amazed by Tiana, commenting that she could also praise others. When Elria noticed that they ran out of tea, Tiana immediately left the room to get some more. After meeting the helpers of the house, the maids asked Tiana to leave the chores to them. However, Tiana insisted on doing it on her own, as she wished to bring the tea to Elria herself. After entering the room, the tea fell and broke as Tiana immediately tended to the unconscious Elria. Tiana cried as she encountered the lifeless body of Elria. After Elria's death, Tiana desperately searched for her again. Tiana searched for a way to use time leap magic to go back in time. Relying on Elria's magic tool, Tiana entered the time. When Tiana realized that there was a hole in the time tunnel, she immediately went to the hole. Beyond the hole was inside the consciousness of Chris, 1,000 years into the future. Seeing a kid that resembled Elria 1,000 years in the future, Tiana couldn't help but hug her with tears in her eyes. To make the future she saw a reality, Tiana inherited the title of the Sage. After losing the hero Reid, the Altine army collapsed, and Tiana worked with their remnants. With the help of Liat and what was left of Reid's army, Tiana destroyed the Altine Empire completely. Chris then revealed that they were currently trying to make Elria's magic technique popular in the world. In order for Tiana to jump 1,000 years into the future, she needed to fulfill a lot of conditions, such as using Chris as a medium and managing the amount of magic left in Elria's magic tool. Chris also shared that she couldn't open the hole in the time tunnel. Because of the hole in time, someone reincarnated 1,000 years ago, and Chris assumed that someone also used time leap magic. Chris revealed that it was the reason why she could visit the time when both Reid and Elria were reincarnated. Although Chris could confirm it, she still couldn't identify who it was. Elria was thankful to Chris as she did all the work just for Elria. As Tiana, who was inside Chris's body, was about to head back, Elria praised Tiana for unifying the country, which was more amazing than the country 1,000 years ago. After hearing from Elria herself that she and Reid were now living happily, Chris smiled. Later that night, Chris was very happy as she could sleep over with Elria once again. When Elria mentioned how surprised she was when she learned that Chris was acquaintances with Tiana, puzzled, Chris never imagined Tiana as her great ancestor, and thought that she had another personality. After expressing that her connection with her ancestor was their love for Elria, Elria commented that Chris and Tiana were alike, and the only difference was just how Chris talked. Chris then revealed that how she talked was all part of her act. She then explained that if she acted like a princess that talked weirdly, no one would notice if she swapped with Tiana. Chris recently noticed that people started looking at her as a funny and pleasant princess, making her quite popular. Chris did not ask anything else besides what Tiana had told her, as she was afraid that it would change the way she acted towards Elria. Chris then promised Elria that no matter what happens, she would always be Elria's friend. Elria thanked Chris, after informing her that she would leave Elria to Reid. Chris wished to take a picture with Elria using the magic camera instead of receiving thanks from her. Elria then responded that she would not let Chris take a picture and that the photo would not show up. Back in the Vigalta Magic Academy, Millis shared how lonely it was when Reid and Elria were not around. When Weisel asked Millis what her plans were on her day off, Millis became excited and shared that she was going to the royal capital to play. When Weisel asked if she was going alone, Millis immediately became sad as she was supposed to go with Elria. Millis was surprised when Weisel offered to accompany her to the royal capital. After explaining that he would be searching for materials for his new magic tool, Millis thanked Weisel. After telling Weisel that he was a nice person for staying with her, Weisel suddenly turned his head around, which surprised Millis. When the two finally arrived at the royal capital, Millis was amazed at how many people there were and did not expect to see moving things. Weisel explained that the object that was moving was the standard method of transportation in the royal capital. After listening to Weisel, Millis did not expect him to know a lot of things. Standing in front of a tea store, a mysterious person saw Weisel and Millis and informed the driver of the carriage that he would return on foot and that they could return first. Millis found the store used by family nobles to be cute. Curious, Weisel asked Millis if her hobby was pouring tea, but Millis responded that it was not her hobby, but she planned to make it her new hobby. Picking up a tea box, Millis commented on how the tea would suit Elria, as it would help her stay awake. Weisel shared that he also drank the exact tea as he found it quite strong. When Millis guessed that Weisel worked with his eyes wide open after drinking the tea, Weisel realized that he should keep his tea drinking in moderation so that his eyes wouldn't worsen. Curious if Weisel's vision was bad, Weisel took off his glasses and put his face in front of Millis's face. He then told Millis that he needed to be so close in order to see her face clearly. Weisel then thought of trying to develop a magic tool that sticks straight onto his eyes. After Millis rushed to the counter to pay for the tea, the two then sat on a bench under a tree. While drinking their beverage, Millis was curious as to why Weisel learned martial arts from Reid. Weisel found Reid's martial arts interesting, as Reid protected Millis much faster than Farag could fire his magic and erase it. Weisel found Reid quite vexing and wished to be as strong as he could be, and also admired how cool Reid was. Millis's heart raced, believing that Weisel was talking about her. Out of nowhere, the mysterious person inside the carriage was revealed to be Farag Verminion. When Farag asked the two what they were talking about, Millis shared that Elria and Reid were not with them as they were called to the castle. Although Farag did not say anything about Reid and Elria being summoned, he was more interested in talking about training with Reid. When Millis told Farag that it was nothing worth talking about, as they were only taught some magic-related stuff, Farag asked the two if they knew the contents of the practical exam. Suspicious, Millis responded that they would have to make teams of 5. The next morning, Millis immediately called for Elria and was surprised that she was already awake even though it was still morning. Weisel himself was also surprised to see Elria walking without wobbling. Elria revealed that it was because of Reid's milk tea that she was wide awake. When Weisel asked the two why the royal family called for them, Reid responded that they were just invited to join a party in the castle and provide some progress on their circumstances as well. If someone really took Elria's, Reid believed that it must have been a far more advanced technique than one from the current age. In other words, Reid believed that the future was also concerned in their reincarnation. Weisel and Millis then shared some news with the two while they were away. Reid was puzzled when the two mentioned that they had already decided on the last person for their exam. Out of nowhere, Farag approached the group, which Reid did not expect. When Farag suggested that they start training since the comprehensive exam was coming up, Reid finally realized that their last member was Farag Verminion himself. Extending his hand, Farag asked Reid that they give their best for the team. During the last conditional exam, armored dragons appeared which were supposed to be extinct. However, it turned out that they still existed. Reid also learned from Alma that the armored dragons were deemed a threat to magic, and it was decided that their species and all their variants should be hunted to extinction. For the next conditional exam, Reid and the others are required to form a team of 5 and will battle against other humans. For their exam, the group headed to the practice grounds for a mock battle. Upon arriving at the practice grounds, Reid asked Elria if it was really necessary for her to hug him. Elria responded that it was, as it made meeting the requirements of the magic manageable. Seeing the two so close to one another, both Weisel and Millis were already used to it and were no longer surprised. When Farag commented on Reid's inability to use magic and his reliance on Elria for teleporting, Elria's attention was immediately directed to Farag. Sensing that he might have offended Elria, Farag immediately tried to come up with an excuse. A couple of hours before going to the training grounds, the group learned that Farag's 2 friends would not be able to recover in time for the exam, and that he had already asked everyone in the class to join him. However, everyone refused to let Farag join them. Millis tried intimidating Farag by informing him that Elria's training was difficult, but she felt challenged when Farag responded that the training would be easy for him. The two made a bet that if Farag complained midway through the training, he would be below a commoner, and Millis would call him a weak, sheltered boy. Seeing the two exchange words, both Elria and Weissel felt exhausted and worried about teaming up with Farag and Millis. On the side, Alma felt sad as she was not allowed to participate in the mock battle that the person she idolized was a part of. Alma's assistant, Filia Teresia, tried to console Alma, making her realize that her role to interject in case of an emergency was vital. When Alma suggested to Filia that she participate in the mock battle, Filia was surprised and explained that she was not used to combat-oriented magic. Dragging Filia away, Alma told her that although she was recommended as a teacher, she did not want a coward accompanying her. As the group was about to start, Millis suggested that they be assigned to their roles first. When Elria was told that she should train with more than just the standard training, it made Millis believe that there was a chance they wouldn't be on the same team again after the exam. Due to the result of Elria's previous exam, it was almost certain that she would pass. In order to improve her qualities as a special rank mage, Elria was ordered to teach the other students. When Reid suggested making Farag the leader, Farag acted high and mighty at first but did not expect that he would seriously become the leader. Holding authority over the group, Farag asked if everyone would have to obey his words. However, he was surprised when Reid told him that he wouldn't listen to him. Reid then explained to Farag that it was the leader's role to make decisions. Reid pointed out a good decision that Farag made when he chose to run away with the injured when they faced the armored dragon. Reid commended Farag's decision-making. After suggesting dividing the responsibilities of the group, Elria suggested that Millis attract the enemy's attention and defend herself with magic until the others completed their tasks. Hearing Elria's idea, Millis grabbed Farag's shoulder and congratulated him on becoming the leader. Elria was worried that the task might be difficult for Farag as he would be put on the front line. Elria theorized that the stronger the magic, the less experience people tend to have on the front lines. As Reid understood Elria's point, she also added that Farag was super weak in close-quarters combat. Seeing the two looking smug towards him, Farag felt enraged. After receiving permission from Elria to handle Farag, Reid asked Weissel if he could borrow a magic tool that he could break. Annoyed, Weissel pointed out to Reid that making a magic tool is very expensive and should not be easily broken. Realizing that he might have said the wrong words, Reid explained that he had no plans of breaking the magic tool. However, there might be a chance that it would break if he tried to put his magic into it. After asking for a magic tool that resembled a sword, Weissel offered prototypes that didn't make the cut. After a few swings, Reid asked Farag if he was now ready for their training. Confused, Farag asked what Reid could teach him if he couldn't use magic. Although Reid couldn't use the same magic, he made it clear that he could still show a similar battle strategy. To make their training more fun, Reid offered a bet to Farag. If he won, Reid would do anything Farag asked of him. After accepting the conditions, Reid informed Farag that he was free to use all of his magic. Giving a handicap to Farag, Reid mentioned that he would only attack after a minute had passed, and suggested that Farag attack as much as he wanted during that time. Seeing that Reid was very confident that he wouldn't lose, Farag cast huge fireballs and told Reid that if he won, Reid would no longer call him boy. Starting their training, Reid immediately charged towards Farag, which surprised him. Reid dodged all of Farag's huge fireballs easily. After praising the accuracy of Farag's magic, Reid commented that there were still gaps and suggested that Farag cover the gap using other magic. After taunting Farag, Reid dodged another spell and commended the spell's speed. However, since the trajectory was so linear, it could easily be dodged. Reid had already read through Farag's plan and blocked Farag's real target, which was Reid's blind spot. After being lectured about the element of his magic, Farag became frustrated and mad, believing that he was above average and did not want to be looked down upon. Casting the spell, Hagen no Enbei, a being formed by flames emerged. As flames were about to hit Reid, he announced that a minute had passed and deflected Farag's attack with his bare hand. Reid thought that if Farag knew about swordsmanship, he would be able to deal with it even without using himself. As Farag did not accept change, Reid believed that he would just waste his talent. After destroying Farag's spell with just one slash, Reid commended Farag's ideas and planned to train Farag so that he could change the way he thought for his own good. If it was Farag, Reid didn't mind teaching his swordsmanship. After seeing the huge fire, Elria believed that Reid was having fun. Weissel still couldn't believe that he would voluntarily train Farag. Elria believed that Reid wished to look after the most troublesome kids. Elria then shared another reason she believed Reid wanted to teach Farag. He had no one to teach him in the past. Reid was able to teach things like swordsmanship and tactics, everything other than combat. Because no one could fight using Reid's style, Elria thought that Reid believed in Farag and also wished to change his attitude. When Elria suggested that they now start their mock battle, both Millis and Weissel became worried, wondering why Elria liked mock battles so much. Elria believed that the lesson could be learned and would not be forgotten if a painful mark was left. As Millis protested Elria's ideology, saying it did not fit for a sage to say, Weisel nervously tasted blood in his mouth just by remembering. All of a sudden, Elria and the others were suddenly covered in shade and were asked where her classmates were. After Millis informed the girl riding a dragon that they were from the East Tower, the girl stepped down from the dragon and introduced herself as Rufus Rylus from Sirios Federation. Hearing that Rufus came from the Sirios Federation, Weisel remembered that the country was excellent with summoning magic and just learned that she was a student from the West Tower. When Rufus noticed Elria hiding, she became curious and asked for the reason. Millis explained that Elria had a habit of hiding whenever she saw someone she didn't know. Finding Elria's behavior similar to an animal, Rufus became excited and guessed Elria's identity. After Elria confirmed her identity to Rufus, Rufus became ecstatic and suddenly thanked Elria, which confused her. Elria believed that Rufus was an amazing person for forming a contract with the Guardian Dragons, making history by making a contract with all 4 kinds. Rufus happily shared where her dragons were and what they liked to do. After listening to Rufus, Elria felt like she would have a blast just watching the dragons. When Rufus shared how the dragon she was with was the one she liked the most, Elria asked if it was a flying steel dragon. Surprised, Rufus asked if she knew about them. After Elria responded that she didn't know the dragon's scientific name, Rufus immediately gave more information about the steel dragon species, also called Volensferum. After sharing how her dragon Lafika and she had been friends since they were little, Rufus asked Elria if she could use summoning magic. Elria responded that she could but was hesitant after looking at Weisel and Millis. The two then enthusiastically gave their permission for Elria to continue talking with Rufus, sharing that they were already learning a lot from listening to their conversation. Upon learning that she disrupted Elria and the others' mock battle, Rufus suggested that she participate in the mock battle with Elria instead. Wanting to see Elria's magic, Rufus planned to show Elria that Lafika and she would not lose to anyone. After Rufus proposed a mock battle between Elria and herself, Elria accepted the challenge, mentioning that she hadn't fought with a friend for a very long time. Using her magic, Elria summoned a beast named Sheffrey. After summoning a demon wolf, Rufus was impressed, as demon wolves are notorious for giving mages a hard time, ultimately making the mages give up trying to tame them. Elria shared that her demon wolf is quite clever, understanding that no matter what he does, Elria could never be defeated. Seeing their mock battle getting more interesting, Rufus rode on Lafika's back and flew up into the sky. Both Weisel and Millis were impressed by Lafika's speed, believing that Lafika had already taken the advantageous position in an instant. After Elria ordered Sheffrey to chase Lafika, Rufus was not bothered as she believed it was impossible for the demon wolf to catch up with Lafika's height. However, Rufus was surprised when Sheffrey was able to follow them up into the sky even without a foothold. Since demon wolves are sensitive to magic power, Rufus believed that Sheffrey was detecting Elria's magic power. The moment Elria created a foothold, Sheffrey jumped towards it immediately. In order to stop Sheffrey from following them, Rufus ordered Lafika to cover themselves with fire breath. After Elria ordered Sheffrey to wait, a huge explosion manifested which made Rufus believe that the footholds were made out of air pressure. When Elria finally gave the signal to Sheffrey to attack, Sheffrey sneaked behind and bit Lafika's tail, startling the dragon. As Lafika fell from the sky, Rufus tried to calm her dragon down. However, it was not enough as the two landed on the ground. While Rufus was tending to Lafika's care, Elria, on the other hand, called for Sheffrey and chained its mouth, making Weisel believe that Sheffrey was trying to bite Elria. After sharing that Sheffrey's food is magic power, Elria advised Rufus to undo Lafika's summon, as the dragon might not last long. However, Rufus became stubborn and wished to continue the fight, believing that Lafika still hadn't lost. Sensing the magic power coming from Rufus and Lafika, Sheffrey immediately positioned himself in front of Elria, protecting her from Lafika's fire breath. Angered by Rufus's actions, Elria told her that she would not forgive Rufus. Even though the summoned beings' bodies are made of magic and cannot die, excessive damage could still harm their souls. Elria then reminded Rufus that showing killing intent was not necessary, as it was just a mock battle. However, Rufus did not feel the same way, not caring anymore if it was a mock battle or not. All of a sudden, their mock battle was interrupted by Alma's assistant, Philia. It was then revealed that Reid had called Philia to their location to stop the mock battle. After witnessing the mock battle, Philia warned Rufus that if she continued the fight, there was a high chance that she could put Lafika in danger. Reid spoke up and told Rufus that if she wished to settle the score with Elria, she should pull back for now, as sacrificing her precious dragon for a single victory might not be worth it. Seeing Lafika, Rufus decided to undo her summon, and told Reid that she did not care about the value of a win and believed that victory is the only thing that gives us meaning. Rufus then left the place, leaving a hostile impression. Back at their dorms, Reid noticed that Elria was lost in her thoughts and asked what she was thinking about. Elria responded that she was thinking about Rufus. Reid mentioned that when he looked at Rufus, he felt kind of nostalgic. Seeing Elria curious, Reid explained that in Altine, sending kids out onto the battlefield was the norm. But that was just a facade to reduce the number of mouths to feed. In order to protect themselves, the kids desperately tried to achieve something. Reid then mentioned that Rufus had the same look as the kids back in Altine. Believing that only Rufus herself knows the real reason, Reid guessed that Rufus was probably attending the school shouldering a burden that had forced her to strengthen her resolve. Curious about what he was seeing, Reid asked Elria if the small dog-like creature on her lap was her summon. Elria responded that she was giving Sheffrey magic power as a reward for working hard. Since summoned monsters' bodies are made of magic, Elria was able to adjust Sheffrey's size and make him smaller. When Elria offered Reid to pet Sheffrey, Reid's face turned red, worried that Sheffrey might explode because of his magic power. Elria reassured Reid that it would be fine as Sheffrey had already materialized. As Reid touched Sheffrey's stomach, he commented on how it felt like touching a dog's stomach. Reid then shared how all animals ran away whenever he got close to them, which led him to decide never to touch an animal again. When Sheffrey suddenly bit Reid and spat out something, it gave Reid the impression that even monsters rejected him, and he could not see a future where animals came to him. Calling Reid's attention, Elria told him that it was fine if he could pet her, showing an animal's ears on her head. Reid could not hold in his laughter but already expected Elria's behavior. To make Reid happy, Elria told him that he could pet her until he was satisfied. A few days later, Weisel and Elria were training in hand-to-hand combat. After throwing Weisel to the ground, a hole suddenly emerged under Elria. However, Elria noticed the hole and was able to dodge the trap. Finding Millis's location, Elria pulled her out of the hole and threw her up into the sky. After Millis landed on Weisel, Elria then praised the two for their growth and suggested that they train again. Hearing a faint voice, Millis and Elria looked up at the sky. It was then revealed that the voice they heard came from Farrig, as he landed on top of Weisel. Reid then apologized to Elria, excusing that Farrig just flew their way. After Farrig mentioned that he was blown away, Elria was impressed that Farrig could still speak in his condition. In pain, Weisel asked Farrig to move. However, Farrig also couldn't move even if he wanted to. After Millis pushed Farrig off of Weisel, Farrig asked that she be gentler next time. Reid then shared how clever Farrig was for imitating his movements using magic. But Farrig would always run out of magic midway through. He then asked Elria if she had any advice for it. Managing one's magic power is something only the user can feel for himself. Elria doubted that she could give any advice to Farrig. Weisel then approached Farrig and asked to see his magic tool. After checking the magic tool, Weisel shared how some of the magic circuits were erased, but it was fixed to match its original state. However, because of the magic tool's current setup, Farrig will have to use more magic power than usual if he tries to use magic that is not prepared. When Farrig asked if he needed to repair his magic tool again, he shared how his father was furious when he repaired his magic tool and couldn't imagine what his father would say if he asked for his magic tool to be repaired again. When Weisel offered to tinker with his magic tool, as he was acquainted with the workshop, Farrig grabbed Weisel's hand and accepted any suggestion as long as he did not anger his father. Hearing the two's conversation, Millis was able to confirm that Weisel and Farrig would not be able to continue with the training in order to repair the magic tool. When Millis mentioned to Reid and Elria that they wouldn't have anyone to train with, the two then pointed out that they still had Millis to train. Covering her ears, Millis tried to ignore Reid and Elria. Millis then announced that on their next day off, everyone would head to Weisel's house together. A voice was heard over the speaker, thanking everyone for riding to Vegalta Center Station. In the midst of a sea of people, Millis ran toward the street, exhilarated that she had once again visited the promised big city, Vegalta. Millis then noticed that the others were already leaving her, and she immediately followed after them. Farrig reminded Millis that they were going to the business district, and if she wished to sightsee, she would have to go her own way. Seeing that Farrig did not understand why she felt so excited, Millis explained that someone like her, who had only experienced life in the countryside, was excited to see even a small workshop. After some time, the group finally arrived at Weisel's parents' workshop. Millis had a different opinion of the workshop, as she believed that the place was too small for a renowned magic tool engineer. Weisel explained that they used most of their profits for developing magic tools and buying materials, and that the appearance was more of an afterthought. After entering the workshop, Weisel shared that he had reserved the place for the day and guided everyone inside. Reid was amazed to see tons of tools inside. Weisel explained that they used all the tools as references to calculate the magic circuits, then made the shape and chose the materials after comparing the magic. After finishing the design, Weisel and his family determined the magic circuit and finally asked a craftsman to engrave it. When Weisel asked for Farrig's magic tool, Farrig became worried and asked Weisel if what they were about to do was safe. Putting his family name on the line, Weisel reassured Farrig that he would show his skills and fix his magic tool. Using construction output, Weisel confirmed his theory. Farig's magic tool had a lot of magic formulas that Farig often used. The setup of the magic tool was made so that other magic would be repelled. After confirming with Farig that the 5 magics inscribed in the tool were what Farig mostly used, Weisel informed Farig that the shape of the magic tool would remain unchanged. However, they would have to touch up the converter and stabilizer. Reid praised Elria for using the converters and stabilizers they took from Altine and reusing them. Elria shared that she only picked up scraps from the battlefield, recreated and analyzed them. Using the scraps instead of electricity, Reid shared how he was still puzzled as to how the tool worked, but expected that the sage, Elria, could come up with such a solution. Weisel then shared a concern with Farig, stating that fixing his magic tool might be more troublesome than he thought. The problem with Farig's magic tool was the magic circuits engraved. Since everyone else used different systems, creating a perfect engraving would be hard. What Weisel meant was that if they tried to make changes in Farig's magic tool, it would affect its efficiency and lower its performance. Farig suggested to Weisel that he should just hand the tool over to a craftsman. Weisel agreed with Farig's idea. However, it would also increase the chance of Farig's father finding out that his magic tool was broken once again. Running out of options, Weisel asked Elria for advice, as she was someone who could use 6 different magic systems. When Elria responded that she had never engraved a magic circuit before, Farig fell to his knees, feeling defeated. Millis then approached Farig, informing him that she had experience in engraving magic circuits. Seeing Farig's surprised look, Millis explained that they repaired their own broken magic farming tools since it took too long to call someone in the countryside. Testing Millis's skills, Weisel asked her to try copying the magic equipment's engraving onto a plate. After informing Millis that the engraving must be accurate, he was surprised when Millis handed the plate so quickly and even engraved its magic circuit flawlessly. Believing that her time had finally come, Millis stood atop a crate and asked Weisel if he wished for her to engrave the magic circuit on his magic tool. When Weisel asked what Millis wanted in return, Millis guessed that Farig would not listen to others and suggested that he owed her one. Even though Farig was frightened by the deal, Weisel advised Farig to take it, as he believed that Millis would be a great help to him. Seeing Millis's handiwork, Weisel was confused as to why Millis attended a magic school when she had talent for craftsmanship. Millis enthusiastically explained that she chose to attend a magic school because she thought being a mage would be cooler. Hearing Millis's answer gave Farig more confidence in refusing her offer to engrave his magic tool. However, Weisel reassured him that he would make Farig the best magic equipment and advised him to just turn a blind eye for now and let Millis do her work. Farig had no other options but to trust Weisel and Millis. Minding their own business, Reid was approached by Millis, informing him that they would be working for a while and suggested that Reid and Elria go on a date. Agreeing with the idea of a shopping date, Elria and Reid left the workshop and looked for interesting shops. Elria couldn't contain her emotions and was visibly turning red. When the two concluded that they didn't know what they wanted to purchase, Elria became sad and asked Reid what they should do. Reid then remembered his little sister's advice, which was that looking at things could also be fun. Elria did not expect to hear from Reid that he had a sister. Reid then shared that he also had a brother. However, he was unlike his siblings, as they had high magic aptitude. Since the two would not be buying anything, Reid suggested that they just walk around and get some refreshments for Weisel and the others. During their walk, Elria noticed a couple holding hands. This made Elria wish to hold Reid's hand as well. Overcoming her embarrassment, Elria told Reid loudly that they should hold hands. Surprised by Elria's sudden behavior, Reid complied with her request. Unable to take the pressure, Elria let go of Reid's hand, comparing what she had experienced to a high-level battle. Reid then thought of an idea and suggested to Elria that she summon her monster and take him out for a walk. Elria agreed, and the two had a pleasant conversation while walking with Sheffrey. In their conversation, Reid advised Elria not to push herself and suggested that they go back to their usual selves to remove the tension and be more relaxed. The women they passed admired the two and thought that Reid was a gentleman. Sitting on a bench while looking at the sun setting, Elria shared how it had been a while since she walked around the capital so casually. As Reid believed that he had gotten a bit closer to Sheffrey, Elria suggested that Reid take Sheffrey out for walks sometimes. Without hesitation, Reid accepted the offer and did not care if he had to walk Sheffrey in the morning or at night. Elria then noticed a familiar face sitting by the fountain. It was revealed to be Rufus meeting with her mother. Curious as to why her mother suddenly called for her, Rufus was about to suggest that they try different foods in the capital when all of a sudden her mother slapped her in the face. Rufus's mother had learned that Rufus hadn't used her guardian dragons in the academy. Rufus's movements in the academy and her achievements were being reported, which surprised her mother to learn that Rufus had lost to the reincarnation of the sage a few days ago. Rufus tried to explain that her fight with Elria was a draw. However, Rufus's mother knew the details of the fight and asked her if she believed the fight was a draw after launching a sneak attack. Unable to give a proper explanation, Rufus's mother thought that she should have dealt with the flying steel dragon before Rufus entered the academy. Rufus's mother thought that Lafika was needed so that Rufus could maintain her mental stability, but now she believed she was wrong after learning that Rufus was not using the guardian dragon. Intending to teach Rufus a lesson for choosing to only summon Lafika, Rufus reminded her mother of the promise she made that Rufus could be with Lafika if they kept on winning and becoming a mage. However, Rufus was then reminded that her duty was to display Sarios's dignity and that there was no value for losers. With tears rolling down her face, Rufus promised her mother that she would not lose again and would definitely win the exam. Unbeknownst to Rufus, Elria had approached them, informing Rufus's mother that she was wrong. Elria then introduced herself as the reincarnation of the sage who had defeated Rufus before. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 17. Please read the pinned comment below about the next part.